There's got to be so much gold in Antarctica.
God, you think so? Imagine.
Yeah. I mean, just based off of all the research I've seen, there's all kinds of weird like mineral deposits. And have you ever seen that thing where Antarctica, the waterfall bleeds red because it's rust? It's like oxidizing from all the...
But I have heard it's mineral rich, though. That's what some people
super
were saying.
mineral rich.
Like Antarctica, for whatever, maybe because it's just untouched or whatever, but super mineral rich.
Just when I think you couldn't possibly be any dumber, you go and do something like this. And totally redeem yourself.
Yo, what's up, Internet? Welcome back to another episode of Three Averagely Intelligent Dudes. And today we're discussing dangerous ideas, of course. And we got a lot of dangerous ideas on the table today, man. We really just took some time to kind of catch up and kind of BS about what we saw going on around the world and different topics that were kind of on our mind, came to our mind. It's a really fun conversation. Doesn't have any really general direction to it, but a lot of interesting topics we're
volcanoes. We're talking nukes,
we talked about Joe Rogan,
Antarctic
we talked
resources,
about World War III.
Let's go.
Yeah, so
climate change.
Hey, look, if you like discussing dangerous ideas, we got a plethora in this show for you. So well, hope you enjoy it. And let's get into it. Isn't that weird how you just don't take recommendations for like content? You know, anytime somebody sends me something, I'm always just like, no thanks.
Yeah.
I got my own things to watch. I appreciate you.
I dated she would constantly send me reels. I didn't look at a single one.
Yeah, you know,
not a single one for like the entire relationship. I told her, I was like, it's just not something I do. I don't like.
Yeah, every time
send me a bunch of shit that you like that you think is funny so we can talk about it. Like, nah, bro. Like, I just don't consume.
That's like every time we put it in the TAID3I chat, I always know it's like me and Mac just going back and forth. I'm like, John is not opening this shit.
I usually look at it, and if it interests me, but it takes a lot for me to click something.
Yeah.
That's funny. Like, pretty much all the things that people send me, I at least check
You try
out.
and dive into it, yeah.
Well, I'll check it out.
Yeah.
But I also don't have a lot of people sending me anything. So like Jeremy Eggert, or is that his name?
Omnimess, the guy, the Jeremy Eggert. Yeah. He's a
I just know on
listener.
Instagram. Yeah, he's been talking to me a lot recently, and he's been sending me stuff. He sent me this really interesting, like 45-minute YouTube video where this guy was talking about what was it? God, I can't remember it right now off the top of my head. But it was he was talking about the whole like work, like employment crisis that's going on right now, and like where it stems from, and like this guy's had some really interesting thoughts or whatever. But he sends me stuff like that, and I'm like, I love that. Like when people send me stuff like that, like I'm like, oh yeah, because people don't really send me like. Some people send me memes.
Bro.
My homie Abe from back in San Antonio, he'll send me like a funny like art meme. Me and him are like into art. So he'll send me some like art shit.
I get so much. I get trash from people that I just literally never open. Like sends me just links to stuff, and I used to click them just to see what they were, but they're just like a dumb weird joke or a meme or something. And now I see the preview and I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna.
Yeah.
I'm gonna open this
my
and
sauce.
It's not happening.
And so, but they keep coming. They've been coming for years.
Yeah.
They just fill my inbox.
Yeah, it's because you know when you see something cool, you just want to share it with somebody you love. You know.
Yeah, or
take it
remind
as
you
like
of
a
them.
love. Yeah, you know,
remind
that's
you
what
of
I
them.
do. Is I take it as like.
I don't take any personal.
They thought
offense.
it's like a gift. You know,
Yeah.
it's like they thought of me.
It's more so like if somebody just was leaving a food on my doorstep
And
every once in a while that I don't eat.
Yeah.
And it just
rotten.
it'll just rot and go away. And it keeps coming. You keep sending me the brand oat muffin, but I only fuck with the banana chip.
I'm just not gonna eat it.
Just not gonna eat it.
I'm kind of like that. Mac just suggested something the other day. What was like a podcast or something? You were like, "Oh,
Oh,
this would be
yeah,
dope."
I
And
was
I bet you
telling-
it would be, but I just for
Yeah.
some
If a
reason-
banana chip shit shows up on my doorstep, I'll eat it.
I sent him. Jordan Peterson had this guy come on his podcast, but he didn't like interview him or whatever. He had him read this article that he had just written about vaccine hesitancy and like what real vaccine hesitancy is and where it comes from and where like the media and everybody went wrong with these narratives. And it was just really fascinating.
And
like
it
he had a
sounds
lot-
fascinating when you say it.
and he had all this great info and like stats and shit that I didn't know about. It was great. It was a great listen.
That's weird, but I can't. Yeah, I just can't. And when it comes down to it, I'm just like, good golf video. Yep. You know, like you said, something I like.
Yeah. I have such a niche taste these days for stuff that it's.
Well, maybe it's just because I don't really look at a lot of stuff like that. Like I have my few thing. Like I watch One Piece. I watch like the new season of Meat Eater just came out, so I watched those episodes, but there was only like 5 episodes, so it's not like it was a lot. But other than that, I'm pretty much
watch a little basketball
and sports and stuff. I watch those things.
Yeah, definitely. My popcorn entertainment is sports and some video game content. But we were talking this the other day when you were taking me home. I've tried to adopt like at least 50% of all the content I consume has to be something like that's teaching me something, or I'm learning, or even if it's like Aztec human sacrifice video essay, like I'll consider that learning. Or if it's something about like, oh, the Croatoan, that shit to me is not only just like interesting, but it's not like watching Ancient Aliens, where it's kind of like just fun, like wacky, controversial, like conspiracy stuff.
Entertainment driven.
Yeah, I like to really get like the fact driven stuff and make that a good portion, even if it's like learning a new skill. Like I consider that the same kind of category of learning, and I really try to consume that at least 50% of the time. Because if I allow myself to just popcorn, like the shit I'm watching is, it's entertaining, but damn, dude, like too much popcorn, and you know what I mean. And then you're the guy who's watching all the different TV shows, and I got to keep up with Hulu and Netflix and HBO and Amazon Prime Video. And
this dude at my job keeps telling me like he knows that. Like somehow in a conversation, or maybe I said something like when he was wearing like a Star Wars shirt, but he found out that I was like a Star Wars fan. And he was like, "Did you watch The Mandalorian?" And I was like, "Nah, not really." And he was like, "Oh, it was great. You should watch it." And I was like, "I'm sure it looked pretty cool." And then he was like, "Well, you should definitely watch it because you're gonna watch the Book of Boba Fett that just came out, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I saw the trailer for that. It looked pretty cool." And I mean, if I'm being honest, it seems like something I'd be interested in, but I'm probably not gonna watch it.
Yeah.
I'm probably not going to.
Tough. I was telling Mac the other day about how, like, I even bought that game Civilization there, right? And it's like, it's funny, lately I haven't even been able to do it. Like, it's like, in my mind, there's still this, like,
it seems cool.
Yeah,
like,
you know, like
man, I have a good time doing that,
right, but every time it comes to, like, doing it, I just don't do it. Just do some other shit.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's like to stay in that like learning vein or productivity vein. And it's so weird to me. But, I told Jessica, I think it's just, honestly, what I think it is I think I'm turning into an adult. Like that's just what I think is truly happening. Like when I look at my life and my arc, I'm like, I guess this is about the time you stop doing shit like that, you know what I mean? Like I don't know, but like that's how I feel anyways. I'm just like now I play golf. That's like my fun thing that I do for like entertainment,
it's just transforming the way you interact with certain things,
right?
Instead of watching just a bunch of dumb TV shows, like now if I am gonna sit down and watch something for an extended period, the other day I watched Training Day. Because I had never watched Training Day all the way through, and I love Denzel Washington. And I've been saving it for 20 years. And I just eventually was like, and to me, that's not just popcorn consumption.
It's not?
No, like if you watch a movie with intention and it's a good movie, it's a movie is good. Then when you watch it, it's like, you revealed The Matrix to me with behind the scenes editing and stuff. So now when I watch a movie like Training Day, I'm enjoying it, like I'm watching it for the story. But man, you're analyzing story beats. You're looking at camera angles.
You more think of it as like studying a craft than you do like being entertained.
It's like you're in school and you're watching a movie and you're supposed to get a lesson.
Yeah.
And it depends on you to how much lesson you get from it. Is essentially how I take watching a good movie these days. And I can't really bring myself to watch popcorn entertainment outside of like the stuff I'll watch on YouTube. Like YouTube is my in sports. That's it. But when it comes to television shows, I can't really get into it anymore, man. Like I can't commit.
But I remember that was a Kobe Bryant quote that Kobe used to talk about that. He said, "Yo, when you're really into something," he's like, "you can learn." He's like, "I learned basketball stuff and everything. I watch a movie and I learned something about basketball." He was like, he was always using those things, like you said, and more of just not like mindless entertaining, but trying to pull out bits that are relevant to him and useful to him. I was like, you know what, that makes a lot of sense, because good art's supposed to do that in a way, like you said, it's supposed to inspire and all that stuff. But because even like you said too, like, I watch Good, which is like other dudes playing golf. So there's not really any value in it. I would put that in my popcorn television category, but I'm also trying to like learn about their approach to golf and all that stuff. Right. So in a way, it's like I'm kind of learning, but like it's not.
Well, I think
it's fun learning, I guess.
I think about it more as like there's certain activities that I've kind of like grown out of and grown into. And so like any sort of like entertainment, if you will, I try to keep it within those categories. Like I try to make my life centered around a few things, doing more of less. You know, we kind of talked about it earlier. Like that's kind of something I've been really big about recently. And so like I said, my entertainment recently was like the meat eater thing, and it's all about like hunting and fishing and stuff, but that's stuff that I want to try to get into. Like I'm trying to get into hunting and fishing, and like you said, like you're trying to get better at golf. So it's like watching that is entertaining, but it's entertaining because you're pursuing those activities. It's not just like, ooh, that was a good movie, or like that was a good TV show. It's like there's another layer, like I'm pursuing this, and like to see it in an entertaining way, but also I can learn from this. Like when you watch somebody swing in a certain way, you're like, ooh, he did something interesting. Like I never seen anybody do that. You could be like, I'm gonna try that out later, and it revolutionized your whole fucking your whole golf game.
That's true.
It's funny because I do watch like popcorn video game content. It's only 2 games, and it's games that I play. And
that you play,
and it's games I play sparingly. You know, I probably watch more of other people play them than I do actually commit to playing. But it's always those 2. You know, like I'll play 1 game of Magic every 3 days.
Yeah.
But I'll watch a Magic video. Maybe once a day I'll watch a 10-minute Magic video.
That's funny because that's how it was for me too, where it was like I would sit down and play League, and I'd play like 1 like game or something, and I'm like, all right, well, that was fun. You know, like, I got to be moving on now. Like, it's weird, like, how it's just changed. But I think that we just have all kind of adopted that producer's mindset. You know, that's kind of where I try and get my kid. It's like, if she wants to be a YouTuber, I'm like, so you watch YouTube, and that's fine. Like, that's great. But, like, be in that YouTube space then, too. Like, because so then now when you're consuming, you're not just...
It's not mindless.
Vegging. Yeah, you're not just vegging, you know, you're taking something from it that you can apply back into the marketplace. And I think that's just what it comes down to is like
mindset.
Some people, some people are just, because like you say, I mean, Kobe Bryant's of the world or Michael Jordan's, like they're still doing things that are fun. You know, you're still always going to consume somebody else's thing. Like that's part of the exchange of living in. I think about that all the time when I'm like walking around the store and I look at all this stuff. I was just doing this the other day at Walmart, and I was just like walking around looking at all this shit, and I was like, man, we are some weird ass creatures, you know, like we're all just out here just like make it like, you want this? Like, here, look at this thing I made. Like, we buy this? Like, hey, look at this little trinket I got for you to like, I guess, have some type of enjoyment. You know what I mean? Like, we're trying to add some type of value to their lives. But I was just like, this is the system though, you know, is everybody's trying to like make something for somebody else, and then everybody's out there looking for something to entertain them in this fucking rock floating through space, you know? And so it's cool. It's
gotta pass the time somehow.
You know what I mean?
Sometimes you pass the time making some shit. Sometimes you pass the time taking some shit.
That's the truth.
And our whole economy is based on like, what do you want?
Yeah.
Do you want a cake? I've got 20,000 different kinds of cakes, and you know, different grocery stores have different ones, and we're all they all look a certain way to get you to buy them. And
they're all trying to entice. But I think that stems from everybody having to find a place. Like I was talking about how the economy's changing now, where everybody's a podcaster, everybody's a YouTuber or a makeup tutorialist or something, and I'm always like, isn't there like enough of this out? No, there isn't. No, there isn't. Like, you know, because everybody's got to make something and everybody's got to take something, like you said. So it's like,
not only that, but you know, this is where people lose me when they start talking about like price controls and stuff like that. Like people forget that prices aren't just, you know, whatever it is that you want something to cost or whatever it usually costs. Like it's a signal of information, just like now views are like a signal of information in entertainment spaces. It used to be purchases, you know, like you'd have, I sold this many albums, but you know, times change. So now it's like listens or views or clicks, engagement. Attention is the money of the day. In a digital entertainment based society, attention is the money. Like that's what you're looking for. That's what's monetized.
That's why Facebook's free.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Because they're trying to get you. It's a good way to keep you on there. It's like if you had to pay, not enough people would be on there paying attention. But if you think about it in a sense that when you're at that point where everybody's paying attention, now there's a new signal. It's not just like price. Now there's a new signal that you can, because, you know, if you get attention, then you can monetize that. So the price is not really, it's really an auxiliary for price.
Now it's clout.
Yeah, clout is an auxiliary for price. If you have clout, you have influence, and then you can monetize that influence somehow. And then basically, it's just the same thing that people always do. When something new comes out and everybody recognizes that everybody says that it's valuable, then more people want in. It's just like Bitcoin. You know, Bitcoin came out. Yeah, the first people to find gold were like, look at this gold shit. Everybody was like, yeah, it's cool. But then, you start crafting it into jewelry or, putting it in electronics. And all of a sudden, gold starts becoming very important to people.
There's got to be so much gold in Antarctica.
God, you think so? I can imagine.
Yeah. I mean, just based off of all the research I've seen, there's all kinds of weird, like, mineral deposits. And have you ever seen that thing where Antarctica, the waterfall bleeds red? Because it's rust. It's like oxidizing from all the...
But I have heard it's mineral rich, though. That's what some people are saying. Like Antarctica, for whatever, maybe because it's just untouched or whatever, but super mineral rich. And so that would be interesting to see what minerals are in there.
Yeah, because one of those, the famous like sites of Antarctica you'll see if you look up like different weird, strange facts about it, is that it does bleed. It has a red waterfall, like essentially that's like pouring out of the ice. And it's from they think it's from the mineral deposits inside and oxidization turning into rust.
Blood falls. Yeah. Iron oxide tainted. Plume of salt water. Yo, what a weird.
That's what they think. I mean,
they don't even really know, huh?
I mean, they say that, but I mean, think about like it takes a lot of extrapolation.
Have tested the water? You can test if there's a lot of iron oxide in it.
That's true.
Let me see. Like, how else would they have come to this conclusion? I love this, the beginning of the sentence. Poorly soluble hydrous ferric oxides are deposited at the surface of the ice after the ferrous ions present the unfrozen salt water or oxidized.
Hey, I was going to say, if they don't know what they're talking about, they're really good at making
it
really good
like
at, It's like, that shit sound like they've done some real tests.
I think what it was is a video where they didn't know for the longest time why it did this, but recently scientists have, I'm sure that's essentially what I heard. That's probably why my brain is like, they don't exactly know, is because they probably didn't exactly know for a really long time, and then they've eventually figured it out.
Well, I mean, I can imagine if you're just kind of passing through this all white landscape and then you come across this blood red waterfall, that would be pretty, alarming to you at the time.
This is what you were talking about earlier today. They call it implications for the snowball Earth hypothesis. And according to McCookie, the now inaccessible subglacial pool was sealed off 1.5 to 2 million years ago and transformed into a kind of time capsule, quotes, isolating the ancient microbial population for a sufficiently long time to evolve independently of other similar marine organisms. It explains how other microorganisms could have survived when the Earth, according to the snowball Earth hypothesis, was entirely frozen over.
Wow.
So for people to know, off camera, we were talking earlier about Mac was saying how there might be bacteria there that's never seen civilization as we know it, essentially. And they're saying it.
And this also touches on the Europa frozen moon of Jupiter theory, which is that if we can find this under our ice cap, essentially, that a planet covered in ice caps could very easily sustain underneath it microbial life, meaning that, Europa's a good chance.
I mean, think about it. I always thought when like a lake froze over, I always thought that like the whole thing was frozen. I didn't realize that it's just like the top couple of inches, like 18 inches or so that freezes on most lakes. And then the whole underside, like all the life is still going. Like it's all still happening.
And this is a whole giant continent of that sitting in America that we haven't explored.
And the way that they talked about it in the snowball theory was like when it was frozen over, some sort of an area got sealed up and then continued to, because from what they said, it sounded more like it was like a continual of evolution that was separated, kind of like the Galapagos Islands before people discovered it and could get there. So this ice barrier would have like contained it and it would have evolved on its own.
Yeah.
And then
because 100 or 1.5 million years ago, it froze over. It used to be this thing that was up there. It was a freshwater lake or whatever it was. And then 1.5 million years ago, they sealed it off. And now everything that was in there didn't die.
Right.
It just did other things.
Also interesting about that whole thing when you're talking about Europa is like if we're talking about a million years, like I don't know how long we were in a cryogenian period, so I don't know how long our cryogenian period was, but after that we came about. And it's like crazy to think that one day Jupiter could just melt, you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden life could just start spawning out of that bitch like crazy.
That's true. Right? Like Jupiter, like Europa could all of a sudden become temperate and then a new race of being could rise within a million years.
And we just haven't seen it yet or anything because in our recorded history, it's still been just stuck in its cryogenian period.
Shout out our ability to adapt and evolve.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that we've, as organisms, have been on this planet for so long, like you said, like when did humans come about? Like, okay, well, there was something before humans, and there was something before that, and before that, all the way down to the start of life on Earth.
Something that there's a handful of things that everything we know today came from that survived whatever killed everything else that was here.
Is that little
which
shrew,
always fascinates
right?
me.
There's a little
I'm
shrew.
like, what sort of things were where to survive the cataclysmic extinction event that happened at the end of like the dinosaur age?
They're in the Hollow Earth.
In the Hollow Earth or something like that. I don't know, but
Niju
somehow
Hibakusha.
Yeah, somehow there was a handful of organisms like I talk about this all the time, like somehow birds came from dinosaurs, but all the dinosaurs were wiped out. So like something was like half bird, half dinosaur and somehow survived after all of this.
You ever watch
birds?
You ever watch those compilation videos of like a man walking across the street as like an 18-wheeler comes and like barely swerves around him and he like lives like the near death like that's
like
what
close calls.
That's how I imagine.
Yeah, of course.
Like they were walking by or like digging in a cave or something, and everything was like boo, and then they like come back out and they're like, "Wait, what happened?" And, you just got.
But that's the thing
lucky.
is like the conditions were so bad for a long time.
That's true.
Like it's not like it was just like it happened and then like 10 minutes later it was over.
That's
like it resulted in just ridiculous tens of thousands of year-long repercussions.
This is a great part for the life finds a way, you know, because like think about the mass extinction events that have happened over the course of our planet's history and how many current species we have of all these diverse life forms.
It's true. There's like a ridiculous amount.
Because even as human beings, like humanoids, what we came from at one point was down to a low population because of certain events. I don't remember exactly what the research was on that, but it said that we almost lost like humans.
Yeah. Like the lineage of human beings was almost 7.
Yeah, it got down pretty low. So the idea that we then could come back and thrive the same way that other species could be whittled down to like one type of bird left. And that bird's like, I'm fucking another one of me, and I'm gonna make an evolutionary chain. We're starting right here. And then a million years later, you got 700 different kinds of birds.
It's true.
Because this one bird and his partner survived the ash storm of the volcano eruption.
They talk about this a lot in like hunting conservation too, in the sense of like in the early to late 1930s, the typical like game animals that you think of, like white-tailed deer and turkeys and like all this stuff, not hogs were still going strong, but a lot of stuff that people hunted for all the time were almost completely wiped off the face of the earth because of like market hunting, where you could like sell buffaloes and stuff. Yeah, all kinds of stuff. So, but then, they started to realize like, yo, we're like not gonna have any of this stuff anymore. Now there's more white-tailed deer than there have ever been on the face of the earth.
Conservation efforts? Yeah,
because like, once people started to recognize that they were losing the resource, they not only stopped the practices that were making them lose the resource, but then they started actively pursuing things that would make the resource grow and expand. And so like it boosted the numbers well past what they were in times before humans were ever here.
Did you find it? Looks like you found what we were talking about.
I did,
yeah.
Or something about it. It's very, very fascinating, actually.
Oh, look at this! I like the little.
I guess around 70,000 BC is what they're saying. There was this volcano, a super volcano called Toba. Yeah. And now this just seems to be like one dude's hypothesis, so I wouldn't take this with like a grain of salt. It says Harvard biologist E.O. Wilson is more than 100 times. Okay, yeah, so maybe that. The guy,
it's on NPR, so
Okay, yeah. So Sam said around 70,000 BC, a volcano called Toba on Sumatra in Indonesia went off, blowing roughly 650 miles of vaporized rock into the air. And he said it is the largest volcanic eruption we know of, dwarfing everything else. Like, and then this is what this illustration is of like, these are the ones we've seen, St. Helen in 1980, and compared to this thing was like megaton. Here's what's interesting. That eruption dropped roughly 6 centimeters of ash. The layer can still be seen on land over all of South Asia, but Toba eruption scored an 8 which it translates to mega colossal.
And I want to say something about this because I researched this. When it goes from 6 to 7, it goes like exponential, and then 7 to 8 exponential. So that when you go from 5 to 6, then 6 to 7 is like way more than from 5 to 6.
Yeah.
So we're up to 8.
8, right? Well, he said mega colossal. That's 2 orders of magnitude greater than the largest volcanic eruption in historic times, and it caused the 1816 year without a summer in the northern hemisphere. I guess there was so much dust and ash and stuff in the air from Toba that it dimmed the sun for 6 years, disrupted seasonal rains, choked off streams, and scattered whole cubic miles of hot ash across acres and acres of plants. And so I guess this instance combined with like an ice age and whatnot almost wiped out
Interesting. Yeah, I can see where that could almost wipe out the human race.
Well, that lines up with the Tonga Dryas thing too.
Yeah,
like we were into a glacial period coming out of an interglacial period, and it was really choking off a lot of the land that human beings could live on, and then over 10,000 years we get impacted by mile-long meteorites, and it just enormously rapid or raises the temperature of the atmosphere, and then like you said, life starts blowing up and you have farming and shit.
The reason I started looking at this is because there's a recent explosion that they show on satellite footage that they're saying could cause another year without a summer type thing. And we should definitely pull that up.
Where was that at?
I just want to make a real quick correction because it said the volcanic eruption in historic times at Mount Tambora was the one that caused the 1816 year without a summer. But
the one from 70,000 years ago was Toba.
That was Toba.
Way
and
bigger
it was
than that.
way bigger than that.
Yeah.
So they're giving you a little context here. I didn't want people to get
Toba
confused.
was an 8.
Yeah. That was probably, like you said, a 6 or a
6
5.
I think was the one that's the largest one, and the one that just happened was a 5.
Wow.
And it happened, and they're saying it's going to cause some major problems.
It's massive. Like when you see the satellite video of it happening.
Where was it?
I can't remember where it was.
It's over in like
it's in the middle of the ocean.
It's like another Indonesian type over there, like by it's off of New Zealand's coast
3
by
weeks
like
ago.
Yeah, it's very recent in Tonga.
Tonight, jaw-dropping images of an extraordinarily powerful and now deadly volcano erupting in the Pacific Ocean.
Damn, look with the lightning and
This
shit.
video
Yeah, volcanic lightning, it's a thing that happens.
Satellite footage is what got me.
That's rocks the island.
Yeah, see if you can find the volcano.
Tsunami alerts, satellite images
they're gonna
strip
give
the
it all
globe.
of us.
The scope
They
of
did
that
their due
eruption is
diligence.
best seen from space. Satellite images
Yeah.
spewing in all directions and as high as 12 miles in the air. The most powerful volcanic activity in at least 3 decades.
Yeah, my guy, that's crazy.
Bruh.
So imagine this one. Imagine Toba, like 100 times bigger than that.
Yeah,
Like, it's like-
because this was a 5. The one that happened at 1800s that caused a year without the summer was a 6.
It's-ish, yeah, I think.
Toga was an 8.
Totally,
So
like-
imagine one of these happened at like an 8 happening today.
But it shows you how fragile, like that's the thing about it is it's so funny. We were talking about this and we were like, what survives and all this stuff. But I thought about, I'm like, climate change. We talk about this all the time. It's like climate change isn't necessarily a bad thing for Earth. It's a bad thing for us humans because we can't survive. But like desert lizards, they'll be fine. They'll survive that shit, So it's like same thing with the ice age, That's
It's
why
like
probably like
I think the
mammoths
man-made
and things.
acceleration is the thing that people worry about. Like
Sure, but I mean, I'm just saying we don't worry about it for the sake of Earth. We worry about it for our own survival.
Yeah,
like we
true.
can't survive a climate change, but Earth itself and certain life forms on Earth would survive that type of climate.
Yeah,
100%
I actually
would.
don't. Well, I won't drag us into a climate thing.
What?
Well, because I was gonna say like.
I'm like, take us
If
there.
if it's the idea that I disagree with the idea that, or the premise that humans can't survive the climate change. Like I think that you could say like a lot of species won't survive the climate change, and there'll be a lot of areas of the planet that will no longer be habitable if the climate change happens the way they say it'll happen. But to say that we'd go extinct because of it, I feel like is a bit of a stretch.
Depends on how it changes.
It depends on how it changes, but that's what I'm saying. Based on what they've told me is going to happen, which is like that the sea is going to rise 20 feet in like 100 years or something like that. That doesn't seem like we're all going to die. That sounds like people are going to lose out on their beachfront property and they're going to have to move.
I was going to say climate immigrations. It's climate immigrants is the thing we're talking about.
Immigration and refugee crises aren't a crisis of not enough space. They're a crisis of overpopulation in certain areas. There's tons of space. Like literally less than 6% of the United States' surface area has been developed. So it's not a matter of like, oh, there's not enough room for these people. It's just that not everybody wants to live in the middle of nowhere because there's nothing going on out there. There's only so many hot spots of civilization that you can live in.
Well, I mean, if we lose that one iceberg that's kind of floating around the ocean right now, and it raises I think it's something like 11 inches or something like that, or it literally takes out so many of our major metropolitan areas that all the infrastructure to house, millions of people just goes away over.
Yeah,
but it's not overnight though. That's the thing though. You're saying it as if it's gonna be like, oh my God, we didn't know. Like we went to sleep and then woke up and everything was underwater. That's not the same thing as saying we know that if we keep doing the same things we're doing or whatever it is, that in 100 years the oceans are gonna be higher. That's a big difference, and there's a lot of time to do something about that. My personal opinion would be that the best solution is to stop living so close to the water, since we know that it rises and lowers quite frequently throughout history.
Yeah, but that's like saying, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's like trying to get a vaccine for cheeseburgers. You know what I mean? It's like, don't fix any of your bad habits. Just move away from the water. Like, I
think that's the most important bad habit, is that we live way too close to the water now.
And that premise that we got time is also a fallacy too. Like I see people all the time. It's like, yo, you should probably quit smoking. It's like, well, I don't have cancer yet. It's like, yeah, my guy, but but you know what I'm saying? Like that's kind of what you mean. And even if we do have 100 years, like let's not act like 100 years is like this astronomically large amount of time.
In world history, like billions of years type context, then no, 100 years is not a long time. But considering the fact that modern civilization's only been around for about 100 years, that's a pretty long time. I mean, we figured out quite a bit of shit in 100 years, so I'm pretty sure we could figure out what we're gonna do about the rising sea levels.
Not if we don't get started.
Tons of people are started. That's the whole point. Like the fact that we're talking about it means that we've started.
Okay. Yeah, it's just like in that 100 years time, in that industrial revolution time, we've impacted the climate in a way that I think is probably dangerous, and that if we continue for another 100 years to impact the climate the same way we've done for the last 100 years, then we might accelerate or exacerbate climate change, or the natural climate of Earth changing to the point where like we could see like the way that the hurricanes. People say hurricanes getting stronger. Like, I'm sure we can go back and forth with scientific research that says it is or it isn't. But just anecdotally looking at, in my lifetime, how many mega hurricanes have hit and how many were hitting before then, like, it seems like they make it a strong case that we are accelerating. Like, the colder winters and the warmer summers are making bigger, more powerful storms.
I don't disagree with that, but the amount of serious injuries and deaths from hurricanes is the lowest it's ever been in recorded history. So, I mean, we could be talking about like, oh, well, we're having to deal with a lot of property damage, which is true, and that's an issue that you'll have to deal with. But again, hurricanes happen next to the water, and if you were further away from the water, your property wouldn't be so damaged.
Yeah, but even like if you're inland in like Germany, you know what I'm saying? Like you can still get severe flash flooding from hurricanes.
Well, I mean, you're never going to get to a situation where you're completely free from natural disasters.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that they're exacerbated by the acceleration of climate change that could be caused by humans or exacerbated by humans.
Because here's where I'm at with the whole thing too. It's like, I'm not looking at the result. Like that's not, when I assess a climate change problem, I'm not looking at how big are the hurricanes getting or what happening to the water. I'm looking at the habits, and that's how I do my personal thing when I'm like coaching and stuff. Like I can tell you where you'll be in 20 years, 100 years, whatever, just by what I see you doing right now.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, I can see the trajectory of if you keep doing this, it's not going to end well for you. And so when I look at right now our habits as humans, and like our consumption habits,
not even just Americans, just
humans in general, like the way that humanity operates on this planet, I can extrapolate that. Yeah, you might not have a problem right this second. I get that. It might be a million years from now. I don't know. I'm like I said, I'm not measuring result, but I'm just like, yo, you can't keep doing this. Like you just can't. Like I said, you can't just keep chugging Dr. Pepper, smoking cigarettes, and not working out, and thinking you're gonna live this healthy, like good, like long,
feeling well life,
like longevity life. Like it doesn't work. Like nature doesn't work like that. So
I'm just afraid that the solution that we'll come to is just more Band-Aid stuff. Because like you can put off the floodwaters quite well with more levees or just bigger levees or there's lots of ways that we could do it, but my problem is that like I like the fact that we have some time, but it's not like I feel like 100 years, like the 100-year problem, if it is 100 years, I mean that's what they say, but if it's 100 years, then I feel like that's a good enough time where it allows us enough time to come up with effective solutions, but it's not too much time that we can feel like we can slack on it. You know what I mean? Like it's like when you're goal setting, you need to find the right time frame for a goal. You know, if you're 13 and your goal in life is to be married, well, you legally can't even do that for 5 years. So that like your timeline is going to be situated based on certain factors. And so I think like that's a good window for us to have this discussion and be like, and I think that the fact that we're having the discussion, I see signs of trend reversal in the mindset of people in the consumerist societies, which is where most of the damage is happening. Well, that's arguable, but anyways, I think that mindset shift predates all of the action shifts, and the fact that we're seeing the mindset shift happen is like, I'm hopeful for it.
So it's fair to say that you're not arguing against the idea of climate change. You're just saying it's not time to panic yet.
Right. Yeah. I don't think that I'm not like a apocalypse, like, doomsday, the climate's gonna kill everybody type of situation. Like there's serious issues with the climate, and like if we don't stop doing certain things now, we'll have to adopt doing things that we really won't want to do in the future, like walking around with breathing masks and shit like that and having to buy filtered water.
True. I'm definitely hopeful, having seen, traveling across the country in various areas of it, at least in America, seeing solar farms, seeing massive wind farms.
True.
Like those are definitely moves in the right direction. But I think, like you were saying, bad habit wise, we're still like driving all these cars that run on gasoline. That's our Dr. Pepper we're drinking. You know what I'm saying? Like
plastic in the ocean, there go your cigarettes and stuff. Because to me,
our electricity that comes from coal burning, like all these things are habits that we will have to address. We will.
And like you said, I'm not like knocking us. Like, it's kind of like anything. You might do a certain activity for a long time and not realize that it's bad for you. Like you said, in the 1900s, when we started combusting coal and doing all this stuff, we didn't really have the science of like how this is going to affect everything, Well,
it was better. It was better than what we were doing before.
And so it's like that's, and then in hindsight, you might be like, yo, this might not be the healthiest thing for me. I need to make a change. But I do like that you said, I think it's more in the consciousness, In 1980, wasn't nobody talking about this shit, and 1945 wasn't nobody like, hey, we got to be careful with this.
I think that it's really indicative of the idea, like, I think of like the energy problems that we have now are very similar to the weight problems that we have in America. Let's just use America as an example. Like we used to have problems feeding people. Like there was, back in the day, like a lot of people went hungry. Now, people still go hungry, don't get me wrong, but it's much, much less than historically speaking. But now we have a problem with too much food, like we have an overabundance, overconsumption. And I think that is really at the heart of the energy problem too. I think finding cleaner and cleaner ways of doing energy is something that we should look at, obviously, because we have to consume energy in some way. So the cleanest way we can do it. But I think like the whole villainization of the older ways, now that we've discovered new ways, seems kind of strange to me, because it's a lack of perspective, because you forget that before coal, we were just burning wood, and burning wood is one of the worst things you can do for the environment. It's a terrible fuel, and it releases 10 times the amount of carbon as coal. But then we found coal, and coal was like more efficient, and then natural gas, and natural gas is more efficient. And all of these things have trade-offs. They're not like solutions. Like every time we come up with an energy solution, it's really an energy trade-off. Like nuclear,
there's always trash.
There's always trash, right? So I think that it's really more about, if we can figure out a way to consume less energy, that really is going to be the thing that we'll get the biggest bang for our efforts on.
Well, and that's where I'm at with it too, because it's like kind of like the entertainment conversation we were having at the beginning of this, which was like there's nothing wrong with me sitting down and playing a game of League of Legends. There's nothing wrong with watching a show on Netflix. But now we have a society, or we live in a society where you binge watch Netflix, it's acceptable or encouraged, or it just is the way it is.
Your identity is now centered around watching.
I watch hours and hours of this. I play this video game all day. That's when I see a lot of problems come about in the way that, the things operate. And I definitely, that's to me, when I've looked at this whole situation, I'm like, in our attempt to get away from scarcity, right, we've created surplus, and surplus has created overconsumption, and that is something we're gonna have to figure out.
There's that controversial meme where it's like the weak men create the strong times.
Yeah.
That's not a controversial meme, my friend. That is history. Concentrated. That's a concentrated dose of history.
I'm saying that because when Joe Rogan tweeted it, there was a whole controversy surrounding him tweeting it. That's the joke. Not that I think that that's controversial or bad. It's that it was a like he tweeted that and they were like, Joe Rogan tweets far right, alt right meme.
My question about that is, are we the weak generation or the strong one? Yeah.
That's not for us to decide. That's a historical thing.
History writes
it down. So this is the thing though. People forget that it's the time that you're categorizing has to be the time before the time that you're looking at. You know what I mean? So like when you look at, let's say, the Soviet Union times, like in between World War I and World War II, was that weak men? Right. Allowing Hitler coming to power at that time, or was it
strong
weak men that
fighting
set
at Stalingrad?
Right, yeah, or like it's hard to say what time you're in, even looking back at it. Yeah. But I do think that that's extremely true. It's one of those things that it's more true than like Jordan Peterson talks about this, where it's like it's more true than the idea of like a fact. Like I can prove this with like it's so true. It's true on like a fundamental concept level.
I would say that it is too simple and has no nuance, and that's the problem with memes, is that maybe in some cases that cycle occurs, but I just don't feel like that applies. It's too simplified. It's memed. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I see it on the micro and not the macro, right? I feel like anecdotally, wealthy men produce children that are of a weaker capability, right? Like if you're born into billionaire style wealth, it's hard for you to have the good spa to, you know what I mean, like get it going for yourself. Whereas like you said, like a generation or like a whole, it's hard to say because we're all in different circumstances within that generation.
But I think you could say, like, based on your example, I think you could say then if the society at large is doing better financially, then you would have equal rates of weakness being bred into the children, so if the upper class and the middle class, if everybody's getting,
and depending on what we're defining as weak, I would say we're a lot weaker than somebody in China.
That's why you can apply this meme, but it's not necessarily indicative that it means exactly it's happening.
That's why I was saying it's not like true in the sense like at every stage of history you can point at and be like this is when the weak men are fucking around. Like you can't do it like that. Yeah. But I think that it's true in like a conceptual level. Like I think if you can embody that, like don't be the weak guy letting all the fuck shit happen or whatever. I don't know, something like that. Like, or even just using it to power yourself up and like embolden yourself. Like I'm gonna be one of the strong men to like hold firm or whatever. Like I just think that it's more true in that sense. Like
it's like a Sun Tzu quote.
Yes,
you can really probably apply it to most all tactical war situations, but it's not always gonna apply.
But that's because it's like the concentrated, it's like fight your enemy without fighting. Like there's lots of ways to apply that. But it's the overall concept that's
oversimplified, so you can fit it into whatever you want to put it to, which is why the meme bothers me so much. Yeah. Is because people look at memes like that and they're like, "See, this proves my point."
Stuff.
And I'm like, "No, it does not prove your point. It just is it looks.
It's a funny meme.
It looks good. It makes sense."
He said, "See."
Yeah, memes aren't sources.
I get that I get it all the time. People will just be like, like if you want to argue like is Pizzagate real, somebody will send you 6 or 7 infographics full of information, and maybe all that information is real, and it all kind of points in a direction. So
Yeah.
Like you're not giving me.
It's true.
I haven't seen the video. I haven't seen the proof. You know what I'm saying? You're giving me conjecture, and it's oversimplified, or it's just like circumstantial.
Or like sampled too, small sampling.
Biased.
Objection, Your Honor.
It's really tough these days, though. In the way, like, our access to this unlimited amount of information, and not just like access to it, but then the creation of information that we now live in, where anybody, like, we talked about this before, like Alexandria library times back in the day, like a lot of people couldn't even write, let alone write a whole goddamn book, and so you really had to kind of have a certain level of,
there was gatekeeping involved in the sense that you had
who could produce information. Now anybody, two guys fighting over a dumpster with a shotgun can produce information, and it's tough now to like weed through all that shit to get to like real source.
Anybody can make a meme.
Anybody can make a meme. Well, anybody can compile a couple of clips from a episode of this or whatever that and piece them all together.
Make it look like Joe Rogan's racist.
Yeah, like that's easy to do now all of a sudden.
I think that's that's the trade-off. Like those are the consequences of the trade-off. Before we had full authority in the information. Like you could trust the information that it was coming from because, not everybody, like, crazy Bob down the road who just drinks all day, like he couldn't give you like information. He's not making proclamations on the royal banister or whatever. But the problem is with the monopoly of information, it's open to influence. Agreed. And so it's all good until you start lying about things that everybody can see. And they can be like, that's kind of what happened in the Soviet Union. Like Stalin just started blatantly saying like the chocolate rations have been raised, even though 2 days ago, for sure that they didn't give you any chocolate. Like you're like, excuse me? And like, you're not allowed to say that they did that, but in your head what happened. And so after a while, then you start wanting freedom of information. But the trade-off with freedom of information is that then there's no authority to it.
It's true, though. It's totally true. Because we were just talking about this the other day with North Korea in a sense of, like, what it must be like for them. I mean, here they are. That's a whole race of people who they think their president's like a god of some sort.
Just doesn't have an anus.
Yeah.
Literally does not
like
shit.
Like, so, and because they've become so dependent in that authority of information, like you said, you don't even question it. Like, it's not like, I mean, they probably somewhere deep down feel like it's a bunch of bullshit.
No, they know.
Where do you
they're
go
in the same
to disconfirm that?
They're at the same level as, I think, the height of Stalin's power in Soviet Union. I think it's a very similar, some people are just diehard fans and like lovers of, like, they're just completely brainwashed into it. But there's other people that have had the opportunity, because like as much as you have a tight grip on your information sources, it's not like it was back in the 30s. Yeah, like, and even then they were getting information. Like now you got the internet, you got all kinds of different ways
not
that
North
you can.
Korea, but yeah.
Yeah, you say that, but people get on the internet in North Korea. Like it's not impossible.
I mean, there's.
I don't even know if they have satellites. Like I don't even.
It would be less than. It would be less than like 0.5% of the Korean populace.
Well, maybe that's all it takes. But that's what I'm saying though. It's like all you need is one leak of information, and you can undermine the entire facade. Like in Soviet times, they used to have these, like the American embassy in Moscow used to print a magazine, and it was all about like what's happening, like keeping up with America, basically. Like that was the magazine. And in the mornings, the KGB or the police or government agents would just go to every newsstand in the country and just pick them all up and throw them in the garbage. But now it's a little bit more difficult to keep the lid on some certain stuff.
And I feel you. It is. It's harder. But like we've talked about, like once you escape North Korea, there's no going back to North Korea. So once you've gotten out, he was even telling me this story about like how they've sent some people to go like work in like foreign countries and stuff.
In the shipyards, yeah.
But once you've been put out there,
they don't let you come back.
Yeah, they don't bring you home because you know too much.
You know too much.
So
they'll send you out there as a spy to get information, but they'll never bring you back home.
In, like, dude, in 2004, they banned cell phones. So policies to prevent outside sources of information. Starting in 1990s when famine overtook the country, traders used cell phones, but to illegally bring goods across the border, cellular devices. And I get what you're saying in the sense that there are probably a small amount of people, just like anybody now. Like there's always somebody who's operating in subversion of their government.
Oh, yeah.
Like, doesn't matter how free or nothing. So,
Yeah.
like he said, there's people smuggling things across the border and doing all that, and they know, but it's hard for them to broadcast that information to anybody. You can't even tell people, you know what I mean? So it's like...
It's the truest form of a hermit kingdom.
Yeah.
Oh, no, totally.
But as far as their internet goes, internet access is not generally available in North Korea. Only some high-level officials are allowed to access the global internet. In most universities, a small number of strictly monitored computers are provided. Other citizens may get access only to the country's national intranet, called Gwangmyeong.
That was really impressive. Yeah, like I don't know if it was the correct way to say it, but it sounded a lot better than I thought you were going to say it.
Content on Gwangmyeong is curated by Korea Computer Center. Foreigners can access the internet using the 3G phone network. However, the IT industry has been growing and internet access is starting to increase within North Korea. So that's cool. Yeah,
all of that. That sucks, so
dude.
many access points to like influence that I feel like people will and do exploit. And so I couldn't give you like a percentage of how many people know what's going on, but I don't think that it's not necessarily a case of people have detailed information to contradict the stuff that they're getting from their government. I think it's more so the fact that they're aware that they're getting falsified information. Yeah. They can't tell you how it's false or what false is about it, but they like, know this man has this dude is giving us bullshit. Yeah, no like this dude is totally shitting. This dude is like, I feel like there's no way that a good majority of people don't have the feeling that they're totally misinformed.
But you're right, though. I somewhat disagree, because I think a large number of the Korean populace, if we want to put this analogous to drinking the Kool-Aid, I think at least 50% of these people are drinking the Kool-Aid.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Well, here let's ask
willing to die.
Let's ask the viewers if you are Korean or you know any Koreans or you have any information. Tell us what you think. Put it in the comments. Let us know. Like maybe you lived in South Korea and you're like, actually, they really don't know what the fuck's going on. So I'd be interested to hear from some of y'all.
Yeah, if you have any experience with North Korea and yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think we have a lot of people here that can tell us what's going on.
There has actually been quite a few, and that was the thing I was gonna bring up in the sense of like I've watched plenty of documentaries on this because I've been very fascinated. And like you said, there's some people where they're like, "Hey, is this bullshit?" And they're like, "Don't go there." Like they give you the wink, like it. But we don't talk about it, So you're right. There's probably some people that be like, around the dinner table, be like, "There's some bullshit, ain't it? There's some bullshit." But we can't say nothing about it, like shut the fuck up.
I was watching this documentary, and this woman was she used to live in the Soviet bloc, and she was telling the story about how like in the 80s, before the Soviet Union fell in Berlin, she like for her parents to speak, they would go outside into the garden and they would take a radio with them and they would turn the radio up really loud, and they would only do this at the height of rush hour, so there was a lot of road noise, and then they'd sit across from each other sipping tea and they'd whisper to each other, and she's like, those are really the only memories I have of my parents talking to each other. Like she was like, your houses are bugged, your phones are bugged, like they listen to everything, but that's happening. You know what I mean? So there's only, it's happening to everybody. And so like, I feel like there's only a certain percentage of people who are so brainwashed that they don't acknowledge that that's strange. Like they think that that's just the normal, because if you've had any experience or any information from any like outside sources, then that that's not normal.
It's very cult-like.
Or at least the way that they do it so brazenly is not normal. Like here in America, at least they're like hiding it under pseudo things. Like we kind of know, but they haven't really like said so, and we can't really prove it per se. Like they say Edward Snowden's lying, so like they have their little backdoor, but North Korea is just like, no, you're going to get the information that we tell you.
Yeah, and what's scary about that concept is just like, imagine that scaled up to a scale of an entire country with multiple large cities with millions of populace, where you are raised up to believe only this one narrative. It's kind of like if the entire South was its own country and everybody was raised racist. Some people would break out of that paradigm. But if you were a hermit kingdom, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I feel
and you're it's perpetuated in every aspect of your culture by design to where like every night before dinner you're saluting a picture on every house has a picture of Kim Jong-il on the wall, and you salute him at every meal. You know, like this is done on purpose to indoctrinate and keep an entire populace. And whew, man,
God,
when you start,
I'm really interested to know the answer to this question.
and when you start looking at, like I was telling Rod about that shipbuilding thing, where they take groups of North Koreans, ship them out to weld in these really dangerous conditions for like no money out in like these European shipyards, and then they put their families back home in concentration camps, so that you have to work and that you have to. And all that money goes straight back to the country of North Korea, and that's where they get some of their GDP, is slave labor that they send overseas to do jobs like welding on ships, like inside of their hulls, and very dangerous shit. And it came to light because one of these welders died. And so people started poking around and doing investigations and finding...
I remember hearing about this.
Like groups of these North Koreans where they just keep them in this countryside in a farmhouse with handlers. And these people don't have access to any information, even though they're living in Europe. And they're never going to make it home. Because North Korea will tell them, it's a year. You're going to go for a year and you're going to work on this ship. And then it'd be like, well, I've been here 5 years and they still haven't sent me home, but I'm pretty sure my family's still alive. You know, it's a dark form of slave labor that North Korea specifically has been using. And man, what a way to control your populace, huh?
Crazy. But you know, now through this conversation, I've always been a little afraid of North Korea. You know, I've heard of some statistics and things that made me worry, mostly because of their allyship with China and stuff. And it was like, yo, like if you take my statistics that really fucked me was like somebody told me if you take the population of China and North Korea and combine them, they would outnumber like the amount of bullets that we have in like production right now. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like we almost don't even have enough guns to like fight these people if we wanted to. But now I'm sitting here thinking like, well, it actually would be like a house of cards. Like, and this is probably why North Korea doesn't really like buck on anybody, because as soon as you let your army out to conduct war in all these other places or something, you know, like they're immediately going to be like, wait, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, this has been going on the whole time and y'all been lying? Like,
yeah, like these motherfuckers got laser beams.
Yeah, like the whole house of cards would come tumbling down right on their head. It's almost like a strongly curated cult, you know, where they're just really there to prop up their own little power, and
they'll never branch out.
But they'll never branch out,
that's
like you said.
That's a good point.
Right?
Well, that's why they wanted the
to.
nukes. Like, that's why they wanted the nukes. Like, everybody's like afraid like they're gonna be like suicidal, and they're like, no, they want the nukes because it keeps us from coming in there and doing regime change. And toppling their control. Damn. Like, they want to retain control over their country. I don't think that they have any like expansion. They might want to, you know, probably retake South Korea back. But that's not going to happen because like
we're in that.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that they really, and I think that that's the same reason why like Iran, maybe a little bit less because Iran has a lot of influence with like just terrorism groups and stuff. So it might be more of like a no, we gonna bomb you, but. With North Korea, I was never like afraid of their aspirations for nuclear weapons or anything. I was like, yo, they just trying to get that heat so that they safe. Like, I feel like, don't get me wrong. Yeah, like, don't get me wrong. Like, I don't like what they're doing to their people, but I think, you know, I've always thought it was weird that America could like come around and tell people that they can and can't have nukes.
I get more worried about the religious extremist states. Than I am about the authoritarian dictatorships. Because at least, you know, with North Korea, like you said, if they buck, their whole society is going to be exposed to the world. And when you expose that many millions of people to your entire life that you're living is sheltered, and it's a lie, and
it's bullshit,
and you know, like there's all these other ideas out here and all these other systems that you could move to and enjoy. That the population, some vast number of them probably would be like, damn,
they're gonna turn on you.
Yeah, like that looks way better than what I've been living in. You know, like my members of my family starved.
Yeah,
you know?
A bunch of black people didn't come back from World War I. They were in Europe and shit, and they were just like, why would I go back to America so I could be treated like shit?
That's a good point.
Like, here in Europe, I'm, you know, Dave Chappelle actually had a really funny bit where he was like, black dudes aren't going to go back to being called if they had their dick sucked by all these women in Europe. And I was like, I can understand that. Like, you take these people that you're subjugating and you spread them out all over the world.
They're gonna.
That's a bad look. Yeah, like, I mean, and that's kind of why I think that the Islamic countries are so suppressive of like Western culture, because they know like it's very subversive. Like a Western culture is really contagious for some reason. Like everybody really likes to fuck with Levi jeans and McDonald's.
All of a sudden you're gonna,
the freedom to eat whatever you want.
Yeah, all of a sudden your entire population's overweight, addicted to porn, using their phone, fighting on social media.
Yeah.
I saw this little clip the other day, just real quick. It was this guy talking about how TikTok in China. TikTok promotes like cool science stuff because their algorithm is used in such a way to promote Chinese values. But in America, what's promoted? In America, TikTok promotes you doing something that has almost zero value to
monetary
society.
gain. That's all it is like geared towards. Like you said, there's no care taken whatsoever. It's just like what makes the most money.
Yeah, it's,
all right,
it's
run that.
Twerk, dance, and eat hot chip is what American TikTok algorithm is incentivized to show you, or also like what I said, hate farming, where it's just showing you content that'll get you like angry or. But in China, it's get you interested in STEM and get you, you know what I'm saying? Like it's they're subverting their own people to try to use the hand of guidance to give them a better China.
Right.
But actively in the same app, using that same algorithm in a different way in America. And this is allegedly, sprinkle some allegedly on this.
For sure.
But you can look at TikTok in America and what's trending and look at what's trending in another country.
But they also know this in the sense of like video games. Like they won't let their population play video games. They sell that shit to us, so it's like.
I would argue that those are actually examples. Like I think in one instance you're seeing an example of how top-down control sometimes can be used beneficially, like
social engineering.
Yeah, exactly. But then I think you can also, and I think it's another highlight of how freedom of choice can lead to a lot of negative outcomes if people aren't consciously aware of what it is that they're choosing, which I think is what's at play with the algorithms in America and stuff, like where people, maybe you could say like their priorities, or I mean they're certainly not in line with my priorities, but I don't want to make like a judgment call about them, but there certainly is a lot of young twerk dancing, eating hot chip going on. And I heard Jordan Peterson talking about how every year China graduates more engineers than our country employs. Wow. And I was like, what?
Regulate the algorithm.
That's insane.
That's what I'm saying. Regulate the algorithm.
I'm not mad at that necessarily, but then it turns into what we were talking about earlier. Mac was talking about in the sense of like once you put that chokehold on information, though, you don't know how that's going to get turned, because that's the thing about it. But I think we've made this funny joke, or not a funny joke, but it's just like nobody would complain about a good dictator. Like if you had a dictator and they were like handling business and you had the highest quality of life and you were like getting paid more than you've ever been paid, like if it was all working out great, you would not complain, you would love it, right? But it sucks because there might be like one of those dudes and then that dude dies, and the next guy is just not quite like that. He has some different ideas, know, and then like. Ugh.
But your whole governmental structure is that the guy at the top makes all the decisions,
and then now it's like yikes. Because like I said, I would love some type of regulated algorithm like that, but then until they start deciding like things that I didn't necessarily want to be censored against.
They start censoring like dangerous ideas.
Yeah.
Stuff that you're interested in, like
what if I'm interested
technology and stuff.
If I'm interested in hot chip twerking,
you know what I mean? Like, but
right. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with the twerking and the hot chip. Like do your twerk and eat your chips. But
again, overconsumption of hot twerking and chipping is a little bit.
And I think China is probably going to experience a little bit of overconsumption of the STEM and shit, where their youth is going to be really depressed
or lacking in social skills.
There's lots of negatives that come from forcing science and technology on your children. Like it's
look at the people coming from
not
like
everybody's supposed to be a scientist.
Let's check in on China in 20 years and go to the club and nobody knows how to dance. they're all just kind of just moving their bodies like, y'all don't know how to twerk.
They're all just comparing notes in the corner as the music's playing.
They're all just working on their laptop in the corner.
No, but that's true though. Like you said, I mean, obviously anecdotal from a cultural sense, but there's a lot of people that have come out of India and places like that where they're very pushed into like have a successful job. And I watch these kids talking to Sadhguru all the time, and they're all like, "I just want to, be me, but my parents will hate me if I don't." And it's like that sucks. That must suck for these little Chinese kids. They're like, "But I just want to dance," and they're like, "No dancing." You know?
We need nuclear engineers.
Yeah, right. You know, that is weird that, you know. But at the same time,
the greater state of China needs you.
Sorry, but the culture you were born into doesn't allow that.
But I wish that there was a blended system, though. You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand how people can't see that, like, there's a lot of pluses over here, and there's a lot of pluses over here. And if we could find a way to, like, mash some shits up together, we probably got the best, I'm not going to say perfect system, but
I agree.
The most advantageous system for the most
because
amount
all
of people.
these other parts of the world, like, this is why I just want to, like, America, like, I just want to start singing fucking glory be to the amazing grace of America, because like, even though we have such a flawed system and such a flawed government here, we got the freedom, baby.
Yeah.
Not everybody got that freedom.
Yeah.
Not every system allows you to have these rights. Maybe if it was a dictatorship who allowed us those freedoms, we as Americans be like, oh yeah, maybe we fuck with this dictatorship. But the minute you took away them freedoms, if there's one country that would push back against losing its freedoms, it would certainly be America.
Yeah.
Because we've had it from the beginning, from the minute we wrote that Constitution. We said
we're not letting it go. No.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Don't take that from me.
Like you said, that's the foundation that I think that you have to work with from the West, is like there has to be freedom. Like you have to be able to opt in or out of the system. But I'd love to see that mixed with that level of support and cooperation that you get from like the other side of the government, where it's like you said, where their government encourages you to be the best that you can be. But you cannot if you want to. Like, you can totally be like, nah, fuck that bitch. Like,
what's that whatever. Sound? I love those reels where it was like, this was me back in the day. I was drinking a lot. I was drinking a bottle of cognac every night and eating a bunch of bullshit. And this is me now. And I still do all that same shit. Gang, bitch.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh my God, that's so funny. Like, sometimes, like, I don't envy those people, but I respect them more. Like, I respect people that are just like, yeah, no, I eat ribs and fucking Cheetos.
Like, I chose this life.
Yeah, like, this is what I do. And, you know, like, then they're confident. They're just like, I'm fucking big. Like, what about it? And I'm like, respect. Be big. Like, I'm not telling you not to be. But it's the people that come around and be like, being big's healthy. And I'm like, well, no. I mean, like, you can mentally be, like, comfortable in your body, which is good. And I support anybody being that way, regardless of how big you are physically. But metabolically speaking, we can say that having extra body weight is not going to help you live a longer or healthier life.
We mentioned this last night in our little personal talk, me and Mac, where we want to do an episode on the obesity epidemic.
Okay, yeah,
because that's
100%.
Whoo, boy, we got
Big
meat on that bone, to say the least.
Yeah. Now we should get into that, but I love where you're at with that, Mac, because that's me too. Like in my coaching practice and stuff, like that's where I'm always at with it too. It's like, I'm not trying to make you into anything. I don't give a fuck, you know? Like, if you're tapping up that heroin needle and I'm like, yo, why are you doing that? And you're like, hey, man, life's short. Got to have a good time. And you're just bombing it. Like, who am I to tell you? You know, I like to work with people who are, they're like, you know, I hate my life. I wish my life was so much better. And then you're like shooting and it's like, all right, well, you're not happy with that what you're like the lifestyle that you're choosing. Cause you see it's a lot economically, you know, like we get pushed, you gotta find economic success and stuff. And this and that, like if you're happy at a $25,000-$30,000 lifestyle and like, that's just cool with you. And that's the life you're choosing and that you're comfortable there. I don't see what's wrong with that. Like, I don't see why you'd be like constantly be pushed to be somewhere else. But if you're over there and you're bitching and complaining, you're like, life sucks, then by all means, like, then you need to like do something.
Or for example, let's say like you are comfortable in your $25,000, $30,000 a year job, you know, like retail or whatever, but you notice that your job is evaporating. Like at a certain point, the universe, like you are going to have to adapt at a certain level. And that's so true. Like as much as other people's opinions shouldn't force you into doing something that you don't want to do. But if your job is going away, then you have to kind of be like, all right, I'm going to have to take a step here. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like certain things, not everything will be in your control in that way. But I definitely agree that if you're choosing it and it's what you want, then there's nothing wrong with it.
There's definitely some floaters out there though, where they lose the job and don't ever get the other job and just float through. Like this idea that like it's like, well, if you lose your job, you have to get another job. There are people out there that are just floating, dog.
Dude, there's a whole book that I want to read written by this guy who doesn't use money. He lives here in America, doesn't use money. He hasn't used money since like 2006.
That's kind of my point. Yeah, is you can
You can
society will keep you afloat for a lot of people.
Well, there's a lot of people who are like living out in Slab City though, where they've just abandoned society.
That's true too.
You know, like where they just moved to somewhere where just they don't.
Well, really, I think what we're saying is that there's a million ways to get it out here.
Yeah,
and none of those ways are wrong.
There really is.
And you're free to do that in America. And where we kind of get fucked up with the Chinese thing is that, you know, they're literally at the level to where they have facial scanning technology to keep the kids from playing the games.
Right.
So their phone is looking at their face and saying, that's a kid, you got to turn this game off. And it's like, we in America, we could adopt some values from these Chinese systems and the things that they've enacted maybe, but certainly not some of the measures that they use to control it.
Because that's why I was thinking about with the weakness and the strength thing and all that stuff. You know, I started thinking like, dude, if China were to invade America, you think we'd be able to stop them? You know, like, I mean like full scale, like kind of like, you know, Russia's about to do the Ukraine type thing. Like their 100 ships just showed up on the shore of America. And it's like, yeah, we got an army, but they got an army too. And when it's right on our doorstep, how many Americans you think are going to step up and like me and Max, I'm like, I'm out. Like, I'm not fighting. I'm not, because we've been raised in this, ideology that I'm an individual within the community. Like I'm not American, you know, I'm just here in America doing my own thing because I have freedom and stuff. And that's a great quality, but it's just like anything else. It can be taken to extreme where now I feel like we're fragile as a country because we don't have that like cohesion that they tried to maintain in the early 50s and 40s and things like that. They were still in all the way back before then, probably, where we were still trying to maintain a level of cohesion but still have freedom. And I think we're kind of losing that balance.
If China showed up on our doorstep, we'd have a forced draft, 100%.
Yeah.
And we would have to go off grid and be outlaws from our own country to not fight China.
Yeah.
Because it would be that dire of a situation. Right. That would be my guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've even seen with the executive order that Trump signed in 2016, 2017, where it was talking about bringing pilots who had retired back into active service. Against their will in some cases. Whoa. So we have precedents for someone like me or you. Like, let's say a war popped off and they really needed Apache mechanics.
Right.
They could look at our previous service, look at our age, and be like, you're first on the draft list. And that's something that I don't think about often, but I always have in the back of my mind when I think about world events, is that I am still a fighting age man who has tons of military knowledge and acumen that I would be a prime. Like if they have an executive order bringing back pilots, who's to say they don't have an executive order bringing back mechanics?
Oh, yeah, for
so
sure.
that really is something that I've thought about before. That if we did have a war with China or Russia or any sort of massive World War III event, that's my number one worry, is not whether or not we would be able to defeat these countries or whatever, how the war would shake out, because who knows? I'm most worried about them showing up at my doorstep in uniform
Time
saying,
to go.
You got two minutes to pack your bags, buddy. You're going to deploy.
And you're right, though. We would almost have to do that because I don't see a lot of people being like, you know, there's still some patriots out there. There's a few of them out there.
There's a lot of them out there.
We could try to run, but it would be difficult to get out of the country without being drafted. Like, you know, like it would be difficult to be an outlaw like that.
Well, yeah, especially in the scenario in which we were just depicting. But, you know, I just, like I said, I do feel like it still makes us kind of fragile as a country, and almost weird when we were talking about subversion that one time, you know. And it's like I almost really buy into that idea because I see it, you know. It's like they have us fighting each other, you know, and once you got them fighting each other, then you're just weakening them by the day. You know, every day that we go on this red versus blue, fucking Joe Rogan's the best, no, Joe Rogan's the devil type thing, and then we like keep like creating our own divisive lines. It's just mopping it up for whenever they're ready to just be like, it looks time, and then go over there and we'll just all scatter and
we said this in the insurrection episode. I vividly remember having this conversation in the insurrection episode where we were like, China, Russia, whoever we could consider a threat to our sovereignty as a nation, they're all watching this and just
yum,
just waiting for that one moment, man, where Mike Pence is hanging from a gallows to come fucking
Order 66, you know, like that ass. Yeah. But, you know, hopefully it doesn't come to that. I don't know. You know, we guess, like you said, we keep nukes on deck too. We're not the ones. So.
Yeah, Yeah, we definitely have a mutual destruction agreement where if you try to fuck with us,
don't come this way, dog, because we got the big stick and we will drop that shit on your fucking forehead. But you think Russia's gonna get into Ukraine or what's
something like 70% of their military mass is now on the Ukrainian border.
I heard it. It's like actually coming to some sketch. At first I thought it was just headline bullshit, you know, like I was talking to you guys about it a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I read this article and then it was like they were like they may and it could possibly happen, but now I'm seeing data where it comes out where they're like, no, there's soldiers at the border, like it's
they're amassing troops and weapons.
Like they're ready to get busy.
What scares me is if somebody else shows up with them. That's the point right there. If China's troops show up with them, or North Korean troops, whoever it is, if one of their allies, Iran, shows up with their tanks and their guys, well then let's go, buddy.
But even if they don't, you think we're gonna let Russia do it? You know what I mean?
I mean, right now they haven't done anything. They've only
did,
flexed. We're just on stage at the World's Strongest Man, just flexing at each other until it comes time to pick up the barrel and shoot the keg over the wall. You know what I'm saying?
But it sounds like Iraq the first time. You know, like that's just kind of how it ends up, where we're like, we're not coming, but we're just gonna put a bunch of people in Kuwait just in case.
Iraq was,
and then next thing you know, it's like,
yeah,
all right, we're coming.
But I get what you're saying. Like if you're considering Iraq and Ukraine in this scenario is Iraq, I kind of see what you're saying there, because then you're forcing. But this is where, you know, NATO and our alliances and all that come into play, because we have these agreements with all these countries where if you hit them, you're hitting us.
Yes.
And that's what's kept us out of war for all this time. But we don't.
It's also the quickest way back into
war.
Exactly.
Though. That's
it
where
is
I'm
a catch-22,
man.
It's a catch-22, because now all of a sudden, hey, they bombed Algeria. Well, I guess we got to fight China.
That's why I'm at with it, because it's funny how we were talking about, like, we still have this really very weird cold war mindset where we feel like we have to limit the spread of communism. Like, this is our enemy and we have to, and that's why.
How'd that work out in Vietnam?
But you know what I mean? It didn't. And that's my point. But that's why we hang out in South Korea. Like, that's the only reason, because we don't want North Korea to get any more power than they already have. So we hang here and be like, we're holding this line, which is stupid, because I mean, like, hey, shouts out to South Korea, love you to death, but like, stand up for yourselves, my niggas. Like, you know what I mean? Like, hold it down. Like, you got North Korea, they're there, you're here, y'all are of like equal force. I feel like hold that line.
They're not equal.
Well, okay, fine, they're not, but whatever. I'm just like,
South Korea is.
Would get mopped?
Well, this is the problem. South Korea is under
better
the same
technology.
South Korea is under the exact same situation that Iraq was, not in the sense of the corruption, but in the sense that you have a military system that is wholly designed and to be attached at the hip to our military situation. You know what I mean? So like, for us to separate from them and be like, all right, you can fight, because South Korea doesn't have their own nukes. They have our nukes, but they don't got their own nukes.
Right.
So like, South Korea is not on the same level militarily speaking as North Korea.
True.
And North Korea is not on the same level as us. And so that's what keeps South Korea in balance.
But that's my point. The only reason we even maintain that is like, that's us trying to stop their spread into any other countries and stuff. So then here, you know, like, same thing. We have that same idea with Russia. We don't want Russia to turn back into the USSR, you know, like, we broke them up and now we feel like it's our obligation to maintain that status quo. So it worries me a little bit that if they popped off and they were just like full scale invasion, Ukraine is just going to start bitching immediately, like, hey, what's up? Y'all supposed to help us. Like, who's going to save us?
If they invade Ukraine, we are now looking at the first front of World War III.
Right. That's what worries me. That's
because
what
with
really
Crimea, it was a little bit different. When they came into Crimea, they came in with like no badges. They were Russian troops, but they were little green men. They were an occupying force that came in under the guise of, we're just part of Ukraine. We're the separatist Ukraine movement. When in reality, it was the Russian government that was backing this invasion because they wanted some land grab. So.
Which is weird, because they're the biggest country on the face of the
planet. I don't know what they're trying to get. But what's the deal? I got to figure that out.
But we, at the time, didn't want to go World War III because it was Obama. But now, it's almost like they stepped over the line and they were like, see, we can step over the line. And we're like, step over that line one more motherfucking time. And we got World War III.
Well, I certainly hope that they will look at history and kind of pay attention, because this is the same thing that happened when Hitler was moving through all kinds of European countries before war was technically happening. He was taking over countries before war had been declared. And so, and it was because he would, first he took the Reichsland, which was this contested space between France and Germany for a long time. So they were like, well, like, it used to be there, so we kind of blew it off because we didn't want another world war. And then they did it again, and they were like, well, what about Poland? And then we were like, all right, dog, Poland, and then they kept pushing it, and it got to the point where we were like, all right, you can't push it anymore. But they let him push a lot.
But that's what I'm afraid of, that logic will be the immediate, like when we talk about these deep state general dudes, that's the papers they're bringing to the president. It's like, look what happened last time, Mr. President. We waited too long. We got to stop this now.
Preemptive strike.
Yeah, like type shit. And then that's what worries me, is that we're going to get roped into some shit over this. And I don't know. It's like, I don't trust Biden either, because Biden's kind of like a jumpy mofo from what I be hearing. But at the same time,
he's got a temper.
Yeah, he's been getting a little angry. It's been like weird. He's like, hey, you better stop that over there. I'm old.
Put some respect on my name.
Yeah. So I don't know. But my thing is, if we feel like war is coming, which we do, it almost feels like maybe this is Trump's grand plan, right? Because we know when things get spicy, we immediately run to the Republican side. Save us. We need a strong leader. And so they're probably starting to work their agenda. Like, if the left was working the COVID situation, getting ready for their election, then I feel like Trump and them are over there like, hey, pop some shit off for us so we can get our shit back, and then we'll come and whatever.
I can
pretend to fight you over
I can
it.
see Trump like on stage.
Him and Putin
I can see Trump on stage
signing a treaty and shit, like
getting ready for 2024's election, like him up there like, I'm the one who's gonna win the war.
Yeah. And that's what I just, like I said, I worry that there could be some things at play like that where, I don't know how these geopolitical things work and everything and what kind of backdoor deals get done or whatever. But hey, war in Afghanistan was sketchy all over it. And, we ran that, like Bush ran that shit for a long time, so it's like, I don't know. Like I said, if it's a ploy to get Trump back in, or if Trump just ends back in, like maybe they're not working in cahoots, but that is the leverage he needs to push back. And then he popping off. Like, he's like, we're going to put it into this right now.
Let me tell you one thing right now. If, hypothetically speaking, war with Russia did pop off, I would much rather have Donald Trump over any conceivable politician that the Democrats could bring me. I can't think of one Democrat that I'd be like, I want this man leading my nation in war.
I feel what you're saying from
man or woman. I'm sorry.
From the leadership aspect, I get what you're saying, but I don't like aggression though. Like I don't like the last thing I want when I'm trying to. Because to me, I would be wrong. I wouldn't navigate.
Like, if you were asking me, I could have my own choice of who gets to lead the war. I'd be like Jocko Willing. Jocko Willing gonna run the war.
I want a gutless fish. That's what I want. I want somebody so terrified of war that they don't even comprehend the possibility until we have another Pearl Harbor type situation, or like till it comes to us.
Yeah.
But I don't want the guy over there just itching it. You remember talking about the gun owners?
Though. This is what I'm saying.
The gun owners hiding in the back corner.
The
like
hypothetical is that it's already popped off. Like, you're in war. Who do you want?
If we're in war, then I want a strong military leader, yeah. But I wouldn't call Donald Trump a strong military leader either.
I said that I would prefer him over whoever the Democrats could put forward in this, like, very near time future. Like, if you just said hypothetical war, hypothetically, you get to decide who runs the army.
I feel that.
Like, it's a totally different scenario.
I would look forward.
Ted Cruz?
At least he's got.
Hold on.
Jocko Willing, bro.
I would look for somebody outside of party politics, in the sense of I would look for somebody who's the most statesman, most even keeled. Just, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, like even if you want to just look within politics for this type of a personality, I'm sure you could probably come to someone within the different parties, somebody, whether Republican or Democrat, who you could consider having a good head on their shoulders when it comes to these type of things. I can't think of one off the top of my head. Cause like Dan Crenshaw, I feel like would probably be like a war hawk, but I mean, he has military experience and he's been in the politics.
I would love to see his fucking photo on posters and shit, like
with the
Crenshaw one. Yeah, dude, he's got the craziest awesome look.
But I mean, there was a guy I remember from the House of Representatives that when the insurrection happened and those people were right outside the doors, he was ready to get a gun and like literally fight to the death.
He's ready to throw down. Yeah,
he was a Iraq and Afghanistan veteran who was I believe a Democrat who was in the House of Representatives, and just hearing him talk and how the pictures of him handling that situation that day, where you see all these other people like running and freaking out, and he like stood up on a thing and was like trying to be like, this is very serious. We need to take this serious. We need to be prepared to fight to the death if people come through this door and try to assault us and attack us. He very much moved into the mindset of like, I'm ready to protect democracy with my life, where very few other people in that situation did that.
Oh yeah.
So I look at somebody like that and I'm like, he might be able to, if he was in a presidential position, make a decision that I would feel comfortable with. But I can't see even him. I don't know much about him. So maybe that's just the feeling I got. But I want a statesman. I want somebody who gives me that feeling. Like Obama, I felt like in the beginning, when I wasn't following politics very closely, gave me that feeling of confidence, of statesmanship, where I felt like if anybody could deal with a potential World War III, it was Obama. I feel like he could go and be a diplomat. But looking back and being more analytical of politics now as a more of an adult, I don't necessarily hold that same feeling true. But at the time, like I had that.
But like you said, we really do need like a Jocko Willink type personality where they know what it takes, you know what I mean? And they know where, like how ugly it can get, but they're not excited about getting there because they know where it can go, like
a general or like one
like
of these,
somebody like that who's been there and done that, but also has a level head, because that's the thing that's hard to find is like it's hard to find somebody with that kind of acumen, but then also with like a lack of ego.
Like you can have like a Teddy Roosevelt, General Patton kind of guy who's like knows what he's doing and can fight a hell of a fight, but he lives to fight, and so when the fight's over, he doesn't know what to do with himself, type situation. And
wasn't it like a
perpetual fighting is kind of what the outcome ends up being?
Didn't Trump fire Mad Dog, the General Mattis, over something like this, where General Mattis was like, yo, we're not going to go to war with North Korea. We're not going to go to war with Russia. Like, you need to fucking chill out. And he, like, fired him over that shit.
Right, exactly. Because he's one of those dudes that, like, wants to
look big.
Get it. Yeah. We've been talking about this really funny, like, me and Mac have been talking about this particular type of gun owner, right? Where it's like, I don't mind if you want to have a gun and you feel like it's, like, in self-defense. But there's some of these guys who are, like, itching for the the chance to they're like they're polishing up their tactical shotgun every night, like anybody ever came up in here I blast them 4 in the chest, blah 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 blah, and they have this like Rambo mentality about it, and I'm like,
I picture the
you're
obese
a clown
militia man.
like I'm like, you're a clown.
Well, it stemmed from, I heard this guy was on a podcast I listened to, and he's like a gun rights advocate or whatever, and he was basically like laughing, and he said like everybody in his circles like laughs at the idea of like open carry, like basically like dupes open carry their firearms or whatever. And I always thought that was weird, and I thought that his reasoning for that was extremely weird, because he was like, I don't want people to know that I have this defense on me and stuff like that, and he's like, I don't want to telegraph the fact that I'm prepared or whatever. And I was like, that's kind of like the opposite of what I'm trying. Like, I feel like that's the opposite of what you should be doing. Like, you should be letting people know, like, I'm prepared, so don't even go there. Like, that's kind of the whole point. Like, isn't that why when somebody steps to you, you lift up the shirt and be like, don't go there?
No, they want the gotcha.
But that's what they want. They want the gotcha. They want the opportunity to feel big and lift up their shirt and be like, nah, not this one type shit. And I'm like,
or the opportunity to use it.
Or the opportunity to use it, which is even the
This is
worse.
Why cops wear uniforms, right? It's like, hopefully you'll identify a police and be like, you know what? This probably isn't a good idea. Before it gets to that, we don't like have them walk in deterrence, but they don't want that. They don't want that. They want the opportunity to kill somebody. Like, they feel like
why do you think cops like their no-knock warrants?
Yeah. Because they like to sneak in and like, gotcha.
Because it was like a week or two ago, they no-knocked warrant. The same judge who presided over the Chauvin trial signed a no-knock warrant that led to the death of an African-American man who was sleeping on the couch and had his handgun next to him. So when the cops busted in on a no-knock warrant, they had a key, so they literally just unlocked the door and just came in. And like, even if you're announcing yourself at that point, police, like, you're waking someone up from a dead sleep.
What's the purpose of that?
To make sure that they don't get away,
so that they don't hide their evidence or something
or whatever. Yeah, they're gonna flush the drugs down the toilet.
And it's like,
seems
what?
Like it's asking to end up.
And it's where you need to weigh your pros and cons. Okay, the con of a no-knock warrant is you kill the guy.
Yeah, accidentally shot that guy.
The pro is that he didn't get to flush his 2 grams of weed.
But we got the evidence that proves that he was a dirtbag, so it's okay.
But it's, again, like you said, it's those jumpy, like, I want it. Because, like, for me, I'm like, I'm going, obviously, because it's my job. But I'd be really pissed off if they're like, we're going to go serve a no-knock warrant. I'm like, man, y'all trying to get me shot. You know what I mean? Like, damn. Like,
well, imagine
I would like this motherfucker to have the opportunity to surrender, or because, like, I'm not doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
Right? you bust up in my house like that, it's going down. You know what I mean? Not because I want it to, but just because I don't know what the fuck's happening. You know what I mean?
Somebody just slammed through my door.
You know,
if you're just standing in your front room and you have a gun sitting on the table next to you, or let's say you're personally carrying a weapon.
Or you're one of those dudes that just likes to have it on.
Yeah, whatever. Or you're just like cleaning your rifle. They bust in with a no-knock warrant and you twitch. You're dead.
Yeah.
And it's like that needs
you
to
didn't even mean to, but you're just sitting there with a gun.
Oh,
and
they got
like,
the wrong
gun.
They got the wrong address.
Yeah.
You didn't even do anything wrong.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like, these
you're not even the person that you're looking.
I don't
they're
see
looking
the
for.
benefit in that. Like you said, I don't like just so you can strengthen your case against this. Like, do better cop work then. But I don't think that's like a
eliminate no-knock warrants.
Yeah,
real.
I gotta vote for that one.
Super
Put my
down
name
for
in a
that.
petition because that just sounds whack AF to me. Like, I don't understand what any American would want that to happen to them.
Yeah.
You
I mean,
know,
there's
I
got
don't
to
give
be
a
a
fuck if you're
better
wrong or not.
There's got to be a better way to collect evidence in an
Wait till he
ongoing
walks
criminal
out of the house.
investigation.
Wait till he walks out the house. Just sit there. Wait
Wait
he's
till he
gotta
leaves.
leave eventually, and then hop out and grab his ass.
We'll call
and
him
be
trap
like, then
warrants.
go inside and take
Yeah.
all the shit or
Yeah.
whatever.
It's a trap warrant.
Trap
And this
warrant.
is the
Yeah,
thing.
gotcha,
and
bitch.
this is the thing too, is that it's like I can't remember which one. It was either Benjamin Franklin or I can't remember which founding father, but I remember there was a famous quote that probably was misattributed anyways, but it basically was, I'd rather 10 guilty people go free than one innocent person get caught up in some fuck shit. I'm paraphrasing. So it's like, I'm totally with that. Like, as much as it sucks that would be the case, like, I find it to be a much bigger injustice that an innocent person was killed or imprisoned for something that they did not do than multitudes more guilty people get away with their crimes.
And you know, all these goddamn no-knock warrants are based on a fucking failed war on drugs that is just absolutely leading to...
And based on some bullshit anonymous tip from your fucking jealous neighbor because you had a party in the block the other day and you didn't invite them, and they're like, you know what, I know that he's slang a little bit of rock, I'm gonna just call his bitch ass up, and then the whole block gets locked
weak
down.
Evidence in general, man. But
it's like getting swatted. It's like you're literally...
Yeah.
What a dangerous thing.
Yeah, for sure. You know, we're kind of out of time, so we have to leave it at that. But
good
really
all over the place discussion
cool,
today.
Fun episode today,
discussion.
man. I had a lot of time fun talking to you guys, and definitely excited for the next one. I hope you guys had a good time. Make sure you weigh in on the thing that Mac was talking about. We want to know what you know about North Korea, where you think it's at with that, and any other of the topics that we talked about today. What kind of input you guys have? We'd love to hear what you guys got to say, and we'll see you there in the comment section. All right,
That's right.
Until next time.
Peace.
Just when I think you couldn't possibly be any dumber, you go and do something like that.